Korea is a historical state in East Asia, since 1945 divided into two distinct sovereign states, North Korea, officially the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, and South Korea, officially the Republic of Korea, located on the Korean peninsula. Korea is bordered by China to the northwest and Russia to the northeast. It is separated from Japan to the east by the Korea Strait and the Sea of Japan, East Sea. Korea emerged as a singular political entity after centuries of conflict among the three kingdoms of Korea, which were unified as later Silla to the south and Balhae to the north. Later Silla divided into three separate states during the later Three Kingdoms period. Goryeo, which had succeeded Goryeo, defeated the two other states and united the Korean peninsula. Around the same time, Balhae collapsed and its last crown prince fled south to Goryeo. Goryeo, also spelled as Koryo, whose name developed into the modern exonym Korea, was a highly cultured state that created the world's first metal movable type in 1234. However, multiple invasions by the Mongol Yuan dynasty during the 13th century greatly weakened the nation, which eventually agreed to become a vassal state after decades of fighting. Following the Yuan dynasty's collapse, severe political strife followed, and Goryeo eventually fell to a coup led by General Yi Seongai, who established Joseon in 1388. The first 200 years of Joseon were marked by relative peace and saw the creation of the Korean alphabet by Sejong the Great in the 14th century and the increasing influence of Confucianism. During the later part of the dynasty, however, Korea's isolationist policy earned it the Western nickname of the Hermit Kingdom. By the late 19th century, the country became the object of imperial design by the Empire of Japan. Despite attempts at modernization by the Korean Empire, in 1910 Korea was annexed by Japan and remained a part of Imperial Japan until the end of World War II in August 1945. In 1945, the Soviet Union and the United States agreed on the surrender of Japanese forces in Korea in the aftermath of World War II, leaving Korea partitioned along the 38th parallel, with the north under Soviet occupation and the south under U.S. occupation. These circumstances soon became the basis for the division of Korea by the two superpowers, exacerbated by their incapability to agree on the terms of Korean independence. This eventually led to the Korean War in 1950, which ended in a stalemate without a formalized peace treaty in 1953, a factor that contributes to the high tensions which continue to divide the peninsula. To date, both countries continue to compete with each other as the sole legitimate government of all of Korea. Etymology Korea is the modern spelling of Korea, a name attested in English as early as 1614. It is an exonym derived from Kali, Marco Polo's transcription of the Chinese simp, MC College, mod, Jala. This was the Hanja for the Korean kingdom of Goryeo or Koryo, 918-1392, which ruled most of the peninsula during the time of his travels. Scholars who discount the historicity of Polo's account instead derive it via Persian variations of the same Chinese name. Goryeo's name was a continuation of the earlier Goryeo or Goryeo, 37 BC, AD 668, the northernmost of the Samguk, the Three Kingdoms of Korea, which was officially known by the shortened form Goryeo after the 5th century reign of King Jangsu. The original name was a combination of the adjective go, high, lofty, with the name of a local Yamite tribe, whose original name is thought to have been either *guru, walled city, inferred from some toponyms in Chinese historical documents, or *gori, center. The name Korea is now commonly used in English contexts by both North and South Korea. In South Korea, Korea as a whole is referred to as Hanguk, Ha-Nuk, lit. Country of the Han. The name references the Samhan, Ma, Jin, and Baiwon, who preceded the three kingdoms in the southern and central end of the peninsula during the 1st centuries BC and AD. It has been tentatively linked with the title Khan used by the nomads of Manchuria and Central Asia. In North Korea, China, Japan, Vietnam, and Chinese and Vietnamese-speaking areas, Korea as a whole is referred to as Chosun, Joseon, Tcozn, Chaoxian, Chosen, Tri-Utien, lit. Land of the Morning Calm. Great Joseon was the name of the kingdom ruled by the Joseon dynasty from 1393 until their declaration of the short-lived Great Korean Empire in 1897. King Taeho had named them for the earlier Ko-Joseon, who ruled northern Korea from its legendary prehistory until their conquest in 108 BC by China's Han Empire. This Go is the Hanja and simply means ancient or old. It is a modern usage to distinguish the ancient Joseon from the later dynasty. History prehistory and Go Joseon The Korean Academy claimed ancient hominid fossils originating from about 100,000 BC in the lava at a stone city site in Korea. Fluorescent and high magnetic analyses indicate the volcanic fossils may be from as early as 300,000 BC. The best preserved Korean pottery goes back to the Paleolithic times around 10,000 BC and the Neolithic period begins around 6,000 BC. According to legend, legend, Dangun, a descendant of heaven, established Gojoseon in 2333 BC. In 108 BC, the Han Dynasty defeated Gojoseon and installed 4 commanderies in the northern Korean peninsula. 3 of the commanderies fell or retreated westward within a few decades, but the Lelang commandery remained as a center of cultural and economic exchange with successive Chinese dynasties for 4 centuries. By 313, Goryeo annexed all of the Chinese commanderies. Proto Three Kingdoms The Proto Three Kingdoms period, sometimes called the Multiple States period, is the earlier part of what is commonly called the Three Kingdoms period, following the fall of Gojoseon but before Goryeo, Baki, and Silla fully developed into kingdoms. This time period saw numerous states spring up from the former territories of Gojoseon, which encompassed northern Korea and southern Manchuria. With the fall of Gojoseon, southern Korea entered the Samhan period. Located in the southern part of the Korean peninsula, Samhan refers to the 3 confederacies of Mayon, Jinhan, and Bayonhan. Mayon was the largest and consisted of 54 states. Bayonhan and Jinhan both consisted of 12 states, bringing a total of 78 states within the Samhan. These 3 confederacies eventually developed into Baki, Silla, and Gaya. Three Kingdoms The 3 kingdoms of Korea consisted of Goryeo, Silla, and Baki. Goryeo experienced a golden age under Gwanggeda the Great and his son Jangsu, who both subdued Baki and Silla during their times, achieving a brief unification of the 3 kingdoms of Korea and becoming the most dominant power on the Korean peninsula. In addition to contesting for control of the Korean peninsula, Goryeo had many military conflicts with various Chinese dynasties, most notably the Goryeo-Sui War, in which Goryeo defeated a huge force said to number over 1 million men. In 642, the powerful general Yuan Gaesamun led a coup and gained complete control over Goryeo. In response, Emperor Tang Taizong of China led a campaign against Goryeo, but was defeated and retreated. After the death of Tang Taizong, his son Emperor Tang Gaozong allied with the Korean kingdom of Silla and invaded Goryeo again, but was unable to overcome Goryeo Goryeo's stalwart defenses and was defeated in 662. However, Yuan Gaesamun died of a natural cause in 666 and Goryeo was thrown into chaos and weakened by a succession struggle among his sons and younger brother, with his eldest son defecting to Tang and his younger brother defecting to Silla. The Tang-Silla alliance finally conquered Goryeo in 668. After the collapse of Goryeo, Tang and Silla ended their alliance and fought over control of the Korean peninsula. Silla succeeded in gaining control over most of the Korean peninsula, while Tang gained control over Goryeo northern territories. However, 30 years after the fall of Goryeo, a Goryeo general by the name of Daejoyong founded the Korean Mohe state of Balhae and successfully expelled the Tang presence from much of the former Goryeo territories. The southwestern Korean kingdom of Baki was founded around modern-day Seoul by a Goryeo prince, a son of the founder of Goryeo. Baki was a great maritime power. Its nautical skill, which made it the Phoenicia of East Asia, was instrumental in the dissemination of Buddhism throughout East Asia and continental culture to Japan. Historic evidence suggests that Japanese culture, art, and language were influenced by the kingdom of Baki and Korea itself. Baki also played an important role in transmitting advanced Chinese culture to the Japanese archipelago. Although later records claim that Silla was the oldest of the 3 kingdoms of Korea, it is now believed to have been the last kingdom to develop. By the 2nd century, Silla existed as a large state in the southeast, occupying and influencing its neighboring city-states. In 562, Silla annexed the Gaya Confederacy, which was located between Baki and Silla. The 3 kingdoms of Korea often warred with each other and Silla was often dominated by Baki and Goryeo. Silla was the smallest and weakest of the 3, but it used cunning diplomatic means to make opportunistic pacts and alliances with the more powerful Korean kingdoms, and eventually Tang China, to its great advantage. In 660, King Muyal ordered his armies to attack Baki. General Kim Yushin, aided by Tang forces, conquered Baki after defeating General Gaibake at the Battle of Hwangsanbeol. In 661, Silla and Tang attacked Goryeo but were repelled. King Munmu, son of Muyal and nephew of General Kim Yushin, launched another campaign in 667 and Goryeo fell in the following year. North-South states period Beginning in the 6th century, Silla's power gradually extended across the Korean peninsula. Silla first annexed the adjacent Gaya Confederacy in 562. By the 640s, Silla formed an alliance with the Tang dynasty of China to conquer Baki and later Goryeo. After conquering Baki and Goryeo, Silla repulsed Tang China from the Korean peninsula in 676. Even though Silla unified most of the Korean peninsula, most of the Goryeo territories to the north of the Korean peninsula were ruled by Balhae. Former Goryeo general Daejoyong led a group of Goryeo and Mohe refugees to the Jilin and founded the kingdom of Balhae. 30 years after the the collapse of Goryeo, as the successor to Goryeo. At its height, Balhae's territories extended from southern Manchuria down to the northern Korean peninsula. Balhae was called the prosperous country in the east. Later Silla was a prosperous and wealthy country, and its metropolitan capital of Gyeongju was the fourth largest city in the world. Later Silla was a golden age of art and culture, as evidenced by the Hwangnyangsa, Sukgoram, and Emil Bell. Later Silla fell apart in the late 9th century, giving way to the tumultuous later Three Kingdoms period 892 to 935, and Balhae was destroyed by the Khitans in 926. Goryeo unified the later Three Kingdoms and received the last crown prince and much of the ruling class of Balhae, thus bringing about a unification of the two successor nations of Goryeo. Goryeo Dynasty Goryeo was founded in 918 and replaced Silla as the ruling dynasty of Korea. Goryeo's land was at first what is now South Korea and about one-third of North Korea, but later on managed to recover most of the Korean peninsula. Momentarily, Goryeo advanced to parts of Jiandao while conquering the Jurchens, but returned the territories due to the harsh climate and difficulties in defending them. The name Goryeo is a short form of Goguryeo, and was first used during the time of King Jangsu. Goryeo regarded itself as the successor of Goguryeo, hence its name and efforts to recover the former territories of Goguryeo. Wang Jian, the founder of Goryeo, was of Goguryeo descent, and traced his ancestry to a noble Goguryeo clan. He made Kaesong, his hometown, the capital. During this period, laws were codified and a civil service system was introduced. Buddhism flourished and spread throughout the peninsula. The development of Celadon industries flourished in the 12th and 13th centuries. The publication of the Tripitaka Koreana onto more than 80,000 wooden blocks and the invention of the world's first metal movable type in the 13th century attest to Goryeo's cultural achievements. Goryeo had to defend frequently against attacks by nomadic empires, especially the Khitans and the Mongols. Goryeo had a hostile relationship with the Khitans, because the Khitan Empire had destroyed Balhae, also a successor state of Goguryeo. In 993, the Khitans, who had established the Liao dynasty in 907, invaded Goryeo, demanding that it make amity with them. Goryeo sent the diplomat Seo Wei to negotiate, who successfully persuaded the Khitans to let Goryeo expand to the banks of the Amnik River, citing that in the past the land belonged to Goguryeo, the predecessor of Goryeo. During the Goryeo-Khitan War, the Khitan Empire invaded Korea twice more in 1009 and 1018, but was defeated. Goryeo was invaded by the Mongols in 7 major campaigns from the 1230s until the 1270s, but was never conquered. The two nations became intertwined for 80 years as all subsequent Korean kings married Mongol princesses, and the last empress of the Yuan dynasty was a Korean princess. In the 1350s, King Gongmin was free at last to reform the Goryeo government when the Yuan dynasty began to crumble. Gongmin had various problems that needed to be dealt with, which included the removal of pro-Mongol aristocrats and military officials, the question of landholding, and quelling the growing animosity between the Buddhists and Confucian scholars. During this tumultuous period, Goryeo momentarily conquered Liaoyang in 1356, repulsed 2 large invasions by the Red Turbans in 1359 and 1360, and defeated the final attempt by the Yuan to dominate Goryeo when General Cho Young defeated a Mongol Tumen in 1364. During the 1380s, Goryeo turned its attention to the Woko threat and used naval artillery created by Cho Muzan to annihilate hundreds of pirate ships. Joseon Dynasty In 1392, the general Yi Seongai overthrew the Goryeo dynasty after he staged a coup and defeated General Cho Young. Yi Seongai named his new dynasty Joseon and moved the capital from Kaesong to Hansung, formerly Hanyang, modern-day Seoul, and built the Gyeongbuk-gung Palace. In 1394, he adopted Confucianism as the country's official ideology, resulting in much loss of power and wealth by the Buddhists. The prevailing philosophy of the Joseon dynasty was Neo-Confucianism, which was epitomized by the Xianbai class, scholars who passed up positions of wealth and power to lead lives of study and integrity. Joseon was a nominal tributary state of China but exercised full sovereignty, and maintained the highest position among China's tributary states, which also included countries such as the Ryukyu Kingdom, Vietnam, Thailand, the Philippines, Burma, Laos, among others. In addition, Joseon received tribute from Jurchens and Japanese until the 17th century, and had a small enclave in the Ryukyu Kingdom that engaged in trade with Siam and Java. During the 15th and 16th centuries, Joseon enjoyed many benevolent rulers who promoted education and science. Most notable among them was Sejong the Great, r. 1418-50, who promulgated Hangul, the Korean alphabet. This golden age saw great cultural and scientific advancements, including in printing, meteorological observation, astronomy, calendar science, ceramics, military technology, geography, cartography, medicine, and agricultural technology, some of which were unrivaled elsewhere. Joseon implemented a class system that consisted of Yangban the noble class, Zhongying the middle class, Yangan the common class, and Qianing the lowest class, which included occupations such as butchers, tanners, shamans, entertainers, and nobi, the equivalent of slaves, bondservants, or serfs. In 1592 and again in 1597, the Japanese invaded Korea. The Korean military at the time was unprepared and untrained, due to 2 centuries of peace on the Korean peninsula. Toyotomi Hideyoshi intended to conquer China and India through the Korean peninsula, but was defeated by strong resistance from the righteous army, the naval superiority of Admiral Yi Sun-sin and his turtle ships, and assistance from Wanli Emperor of Ming China. However, Joseon experienced great destruction, including a tremendous loss of cultural sites such as temples and palaces to Japanese pillaging, and the Japanese brought back to Japan an estimated 100,000–200,000 noses cut from Korean victims. Less than 30 years after the Japanese invasions, the Manchus took advantage of Joseon's war-weakened state and invaded in 1627 and 1637, and then went on to conquer the destabilized Ming dynasty. After normalizing relations with the new Qing dynasty, Joseon experienced a nearly 200-year period of peace. Kings Yongzhou and Zhengzhou led a new renaissance of the Joseon dynasty during the 18th century. In the 19th century, the royal in-law families gained control of the government, leading to mass corruption and weakening of the state, and severe poverty and peasant rebellions throughout the country. Furthermore, the Joseon government adopted a strict isolationist policy, earning the nickname the Hermit Kingdom, but ultimately failed to protect itself against imperialism and was forced to open its borders, beginning an era leading into Japanese imperial rule. Korean Empire Beginning in 1871, Japan began to force Korea out of China's traditional sphere of influence into its own. As a result of the Sino-Japanese War, 1894–95, the Qing dynasty had to give up such a position according to Article 1 of the Treaty of Shimonoseki, which was concluded between China and Japan in 1895. That same year, Empress Myeongsong was assassinated by Japanese agents. In 1897, the Joseon dynasty proclaimed the Korean Empire 1897–1910, and King Gojong became an emperor. This brief period saw the partially successful modernization of the military, economy, real property laws, education system, and various industries, influenced by the political encroachment into Korea of Russia, Japan, France, and the United States. In 1904, the Russo-Japanese War pushed the Russians out of the fight for Korea. In Manchuria on the 26th of October 1909, and Young Jun assassinated the former resident general of Korea, Ito Hirobumi, for his role in trying to force Korea into occupation. Japanese rule In 1910, an already militarily occupied Korea was a forced party to the Japan-Korea Annexation Treaty. The treaty was signed by Lee Won-young, who was given the general power of attorney by the emperor. However, the emperor is said to have not actually ratified the treaty according to Yi Tae-jin. There is a long dispute whether this treaty was legal or illegal due to its signing under duress, threat of force and bribes. Korean resistance to the brutal Japanese occupation was manifested in the non-violent March 1 movement of 1919, during which 7,000 demonstrators were killed by Japanese police and military. The Korean liberation movement also spread to neighboring Manchuria and Siberia. Over 5 million Koreans were conscripted for labor beginning in 1939, and tens of thousands of men were forced into Japan's military. Nearly 400,000 Korean laborers died. Approximately 200,000 girls and women, mostly from China and Korea, were forced into sexual slavery for the Japanese military. In 1993, Japanese Chief Cabinet Secretary Yohei Kono acknowledged the terrible injustices faced by these euphemistically named comfort women. During the Japanese annexation, the Korean language was suppressed in an effort to eradicate Korean national identity. Koreans were forced to take Japanese surnames, known as Soshi Kaimai. Traditional Korean culture suffered heavy losses, as numerous Korean cultural artifacts were destroyed or taken to Japan. To this day, valuable Korean artifacts can often be found in Japanese museums or among private collections. One investigation by the South Korean government identified 75,311 cultural assets that were taken from Korea, 34,369 in Japan and 17,803 in the United States. However, experts estimate that over 100,000 artifacts actually remain in Japan. Japanese officials considered returning Korean cultural properties, but to date this has not occurred. Korea and Japan still dispute the ownership of the Dokdo islets located east of the Korean peninsula. There was a significant level of emigration to the overseas territories of the Empire of Japan during the Japanese occupation period, including Korea. By the end of World War II, there were over 850,000 Japanese settlers in Korea. After World War II, most of these overseas Japanese repatriated to Japan. Korean War In 1945, with the surrender of Japan, the United Nations developed plans for a trusteeship administration, the Soviet Union administering the peninsula north of the 38th parallel and the United States administering the south. The politics of the Cold War resulted in the 1948 establishment of two separate governments, North Korea and South Korea. In June 1950, North Korea invaded the South, using Soviet tanks and weaponry. During the Korean War, 1950-53, more than 1 million people died and the 3 years of fighting throughout the nation effectively destroyed most cities. The war ended in an armistice agreement at approximately the military demarcation line. Division The aftermath of World War II left Korea partitioned along the 38th parallel, with the north under Soviet occupation and the south under U.S. occupation supported by other Allied states. Consequently, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, a Soviet-style socialist republic, was established in the north while the Republic of Korea, a Western-style regime, was established in the south. The Korean War broke out when Soviet-backed North Korea invaded South Korea, though neither side gained much territory as a result. The Korean peninsula remains divided, the Korean demilitarized zone being the de facto border between the two states. Since the 1960s, the South Korean economy has grown enormously and the economic structure was radically transformed. In 1957, South Korea had a lower per capita GDP than Ghana, and by 2008 it was 17 times as high as Ghana's. North Korea, officially the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, is a one-party state, now centered on Kim Il-sung's Juche ideology, with a centrally planned industrial economy. South Korea, officially the Republic of Korea, is a multi-party state with a capitalist market economy, alongside membership in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development and the Group of 20. The two states have greatly diverged both culturally and economically since their partition, though they still share a common traditional culture and pre-Cold War history. According to R.J. Rummel, forced labor, executions, and concentration camps were responsible for over 1 million deaths in North Korea from 1948 to 1987. Others have estimated 400,000 deaths in concentration camps alone. Estimates based on the most recent North Korean census suggest that 240,000 to 420,000 people died as a result of the 1990s famine and that there were 600,000 to 850,000 unnatural deaths in North Korea from 1993 to 2008. Geography Korea is located on the Korean peninsula in East Asia. To the northwest, the Amnik River separates Korea from China, and to the northeast, the Duman River separates Korea from China and Russia. The peninsula is surrounded by the Yellow Sea to the west, the East China Sea and Korea Strait to the south, and the East Sea. Notable islands include Jeju Island, Ulung Island, Dokdo. The southern and western parts of the peninsula have well-developed plains, while the eastern and northern parts are mountainous. The highest mountain in Korea is Mount Paektu, 2,744 meters, through which runs the border with China. The southern extension of Mount Paektu is a highland called Gama Heights. This highland was mainly raised during the Cenozoic orogeny and partly covered by volcanic matter. To the south of Gama Go-1, successive high mountains are located along the eastern coast of the peninsula. This mountain range is named Baekdudagan. Some significant mountains include Mount Sobaker Sobagsan, 1,439 meters, Mount Kumgang, 1,638 meters, Mount Seorik, 1,708 meters, Mount Taebake, 1,567 meters, and Mount Yuri, 1,915 meters. There are several Loa, secondary mountain series whose direction is almost perpendicular to that of Baekdudagan. They are developed along the tectonic line of Mesozoic orogeny and their directions are basically northwest. Unlike most ancient mountains on the mainland, many important islands in Korea were formed by volcanic activity in the Cenozoic orogeny. Jeju Island, situated off the southern coast, is a large volcanic island whose main mountain, Mount Hala or Halasan, 1,950 meters, is the highest in South Korea. Ulung Island is a volcanic island in the Sea of Japan, whose composition is more felsic than Jeju-do. The volcanic islands tend to be younger, the more westward. Because the mountainous region is mostly on the eastern part of the peninsula, the main rivers tend to flow westwards. Two exceptions are the southward flowing Nakdong River and Seomjin River. Important rivers running westward include the Amnik River, the Chongcheon River, the Taedong River, the Han River, the Jeom River, and the Yongsan River. These rivers have vast floodplains and provide an ideal environment for wet rice cultivation. The southern and southwestern coastlines of Korea form a well-developed Ria coastline, known as Dadohaijin in Korean. Its convoluted coastline provides mild seas, and the resulting calm environment allows for safe navigation, fishing, fishing, and seaweed farming. In addition to the complex coastline, the western coast of the Korean peninsula has an extremely high tidal amplitude, at Incheon, around the middle of the western coast. It can get as high as 9 meters. Vast tidal flats have been developing on the south and west coastlines. Wildlife Animal life of Korea includes a considerable number of bird species and native freshwater fish. Native or endemic species of the Korean peninsula include Korean hare, Korean water deer, Korean field mouse, Korean brown frog, Korean pine and Korean spruce. The Korean Demilitarized Zone, DMZ, with its forest and natural wetlands is a unique biodiversity spot, which harbors 82 endangered species. There are also approximately 3,034 species of vascular plants. Demographics The combined population of the Koreans is about 76 million, North Korea, 25 million, South Korea, 51 million. Korea is chiefly populated by a highly homogeneous ethnic group, the Koreans, who speak the Korean language. The number of foreigners living in Korea has also steadily increased since the late 20th century, particularly in South Korea, where more than 1 million foreigners reside. It was estimated in 2006 that only 26,700 of the old Chinese community now remain in South Korea. However, in recent years, immigration from mainland China has increased. 624,994 persons of Chinese nationality have immigrated to South Korea, including 443,566 of ethnic Korean descent. Small communities of ethnic Chinese and Japanese are also found in North Korea. Language Korean is the official language of both North and South Korea, and, along with Mandarin, of Yanbian Korean Autonomous Prefecture in Manchuria area of China. Worldwide, there are up to 80 million speakers of the Korean language. South Korea has around 50 million speakers while North Korea around 25 million. Other large groups of Korean speakers through Korean diaspora are found in China, the United States, Japan, former Soviet Union and elsewhere. The classification of Korean is debated. Some linguists place it in the Altaic language family, others consider it to be a language isolate. Korean is agglutinative in its morphology and SOV in its syntax. Like Japanese and Vietnamese, Korean has borrowed much vocabulary from the Chinese or created vocabulary on Chinese models. Modern Korean is written almost exclusively in the script of the Korean alphabet, known as Hangul in South Korea and Chosungyul in China and North Korea, which was invented in the 15th century. Korean is sometimes written with the addition of some Chinese characters called hanja. However, this is only occasionally seen nowadays. While Hangul may appear logographic, it is actually a phonemic alphabet organized into syllabic blocks. Each block consists of at least 2 of the 24 Hangul letters, jamo, at least 1 each of the 14 consonants and 10 vowels. Historically, the alphabet had several additional letters. See obsolete jamo. For a phonological description of the letters, see Korean phonology. Culture and arts In ancient Chinese texts, Korea is referred to as rivers and mountains embroidered on silk, and Eastern nation of decorum. Individuals are regarded as 1 year old when they are born, as Koreans reckon the pregnancy period as 1 year of life for infants, and age increments increase on New Year's Day rather than on the anniversary of birthdays. Thus, one born immediately before New Year's Day may only be a few days old in Western reckoning, but 2 years old in Korea. Accordingly, a Korean person's stated age, at least among fellow Koreans, will be 1 or 2 years more than their age according to Western reckoning. However, Western reckoning is sometimes applied with regard to the concept of legal age. For example, the legal age for purchasing alcohol or cigarettes in the Republic of Korea is 19, which is measured according to Western reckoning. Literature Korean literature written before the end of the Joseon dynasty is called classical or traditional literature, written in Chinese characters, hanja, was established at the same time as the Chinese script arrived on the peninsula. Korean scholars were writing poetry in the classical Korean style as early as the 2nd century BC, reflecting Korean thoughts and experiences of that time. Classical Korean literature has its roots in traditional folk beliefs and folk tales of the peninsula, strongly influenced by Confucianism, Buddhism and Taoism. Modern literature is often linked with the development of Hangul, which helped spread literacy from the aristocracy to the common men and women. Hangul, however, only reached a dominant position in Korean literature in the second half of the 19th century, resulting in a major growth in Korean literature. Sin Sociol, for instance, are novels written in Hangul. The Korean War led to the development of literature centered on the wounds and chaos of war. Much of the post-war literature in South Korea deals with the daily lives of ordinary people, and their struggles with national pain. The collapse of the traditional Korean value system is another common theme of the time. Music Traditional Korean music includes combinations of the folk, vocal, religious and ritual music styles of the Korean people. Korean music has been practiced since prehistoric times. Korean music falls into two broad categories. The first, Hyanguk, literally means the local music or music native to Korea, of which example is Sujekian, a piece of instrumental music as old as 1,300 years. The second, Yanguk, represent a more Western style. Religion Confucian tradition has dominated Korean thought, along with contributions by Buddhism, Taoism, and Korean shamanism. Since the middle of the 20th century, however, Christianity has competed with Buddhism in South Korea, while religious practice has been suppressed in North Korea. According to 2005 statistics compiled by the South Korean government, about 46% of citizens profess to follow no particular religion. Christians account for 29.2% of the population, of which are Protestants 18.3% and Catholics 10.9%, and Buddhists 22.8%. Islam in South Korea is practiced by about 45,000 natives, about 0.09% of the population, in addition to some 100,000 foreign workers from Muslim countries. Cuisine Koreans traditionally believe that the taste and quality of food depend on its spices and sauces, the essential ingredients to making a delicious meal. Therefore, soybean paste, soy sauce, gochujang or red pepper paste and kimchi are some of the most important staples in a Korean household. Korean cuisine was greatly influenced by the geography and climate of the Korean peninsula, which is known for its cold autumns and winters. Therefore, there are many fermented dishes and hot soups and stews. Korean cuisine is probably best known for kimchi, a side dish which uses a distinctive fermentation process of preserving vegetables, most commonly cabbage. Kimchi is said to relieve the pores on the skin, thereby reducing wrinkles and providing nutrients to the skin naturally. It is also healthy, as it provides necessary vitamins and nutrients. Gochujang, a traditional Korean sauce made of red pepper, is also commonly used, often as pepper, chili, paste, earning the cuisine a reputation for spiciness. Bulgogi, roasted marinated meat, usually beef, galbi, marinated grilled short ribs, and samgyeopsal, pork belly, are popular meat entrees. Fish is also a popular commodity, as it is the traditional meat that Koreans eat. Meals are usually accompanied by a soup or stew, such as galbatang, stewed ribs, or donyeong-jae-jjigae, fermented bean paste soup. The center of the table is filled with a shared collection of side dishes called banchan. Other popular dishes include bibimbap, which literally means mixed rice, rice mixed with meat, vegetables, and red pepper paste, and naengmyeon, cold noodles. Sundae, a sausage made of cellophane noodles and pork blood, is widely eaten. Additionally, some other common snacks include choco pie, shrimp crackers, bongtwija, puffed rice grains, and naringji, slightly burnt rice. Naringji can be eaten as it is or boiled with water to make a soup. Naringji can also be eaten as a snack or a dessert. Korea is unique among Asian countries in its use of metal chopsticks. Metal chopsticks have been discovered in archaeological sites belonging to the ancient Korean kingdoms of Goryeo, Baki and Silla. Television Korean television dramas, K-dramas, have become popular in many countries, and as a result outdoor locations featured in K-dramas have become popular stops for international tourists. Product placements in the dramas have proven effective in advertising. For example, sales of cosmetics, clothing and food favored by the female lead played by actress Jun Ji-yeon in the drama My Love from the Star rose significantly after the relevant episodes aired. In one notorious case, it was reported that a woman in China became ill after consuming nothing but fried chicken and beer, the character's favorite snack, for several days. Education The modern South Korean school system consists of 6 years in elementary school, 3 years in middle school, and 3 years in high school. Students are required to go to elementary and middle school, and do not have to pay for their education, except for a small fee called a school operation support fee that differs from school to school. The Program for International Student Assessment, coordinated by the OECD, ranks South Korea's science education as the third best in the world and being significantly higher than the OECD average. South Korea ranks second on math and literature and first in problem solving. Although South Korean students often rank high on international international comparative assessments, the education system is criticized for emphasizing too much upon passive learning and memorization. The South Korean education system is rather notably strict and structured as compared to its counterparts in most Western societies. Also, the prevalence of non-school for-profit private institutes such as academies or cram schools, Hagwon, which too emphasize passive memorization, as opposed to conceptual understanding, in students are criticized as a major social problem. After students enter university, however, the situation is markedly reversed in Korea. University is hard to enter, and graduation is comparatively easier than entry. The South Korean education system consists primarily of universal and state-funded schooling by the government. The national literacy rate for citizens 15 years of age and above is over 99%. Children go through 1 year of kindergarten, 4 years of primary education, 6 years of secondary education, and then on to universities. The most prestigious university in the DPRK is Kim Il-sung University. Other notable universities include Kimchi University of Technology, which focuses on computer science, Pyongyang University of Foreign Studies, which trains working-level diplomats and trade officials, and Kim Hyong-jik University, which trains teachers. Outside the formal structure of schools and classrooms in the north is the extremely important social education. This education includes not only extracurricular activities but also family life and the broadest range of human relationships within society. There is great sensitivity to the influence of the social environment on the growing child and its role in the development of his or her character. The ideal of social education is to provide a carefully controlled environment in which children are exposed only to pro-Juche and anti-South influences. According to a North Korean official interviewed in 1990, school education is not enough to turn the rising generation into men of knowledge, virtue, and physical fitness. After school, our children have many spare hours, so it's important to efficiently organize their after-school education. Science and technology . One of the best-known artifacts of Korea's history of science and technology is the Cheomsungdae, a 9.4-meter high observatory built in 634. The earliest known surviving Korean example of woodblock printing is the Mugu Jengwang Great Dharani Sutra. It is believed to have been printed in Korea in 750–51, which if correct, would make it older than the Diamond Sutra. During the Goryeo Dynasty, metal movable type printing was invented by Cho Yanui in 1234. This invention made printing easier, more efficient and also increased literacy, which observed by Chinese visitors was seen to be so important where it was considered to be shameful to not be able to read. The Mongol Empire later adopted Korea's movable type printing and spread as far as Central Asia. There is conjecture as to whether or not Cho's invention had any influence on later printing inventions such as Gutenberg's printing press. When the Mongols invaded Europe, they inadvertently introduced different kinds of Asian technology. During the Joseon period, the turtle ship was invented, which were covered by a wooden deck and iron with thorns, as well as other weapons such as the Big Yeok Jinchielo cannon, and the Hwaka. The Korean alphabet Hangul was also invented during this time by King Sejong the Great. Sport . While association football remains one of the most popular sports in South Korea, the martial art of Taekwondo is considered to be the national sport. Baseball and golf are also popular. Taekwondo . Taekwondo is one of Korea's most famous sports. It combines combat techniques, self-defense, sport, exercise and in some cases meditation and philosophy. Taekwondo has become an official Olympic sport, starting as a demonstration event in 1988 when South Korea hosted the Games in Seoul, and becoming an official medal event in 2000. There are two main authoritative Taekwondo organizations in the world. One is WTF, World Taekwondo Federation, and the other is ITF, International Taekwondo Federation. Hapkido . Hapkido is a modern Korean martial art with a grappling focus that employs joint locks, throws, kicks, punches and other striking attacks like attacks against pressure points. Hapkido emphasizes circular motion, non-resisting movements and control of the opponent. Practitioners seek to gain advantage through footwork and body positioning to employ leverage, avoiding the pure use of strength against strength. Serum . Serum is a traditional form of wrestling that has been practiced in Korea for thousands of years, with evidence discovered from Goryeo of Korea's Three Kingdoms period, 57 BC to 688. Serum is the traditional national sport of Korea. During a match, opponents grip each other by sash belts wrapped around the waist and the thigh, attempting to throw their competitor to the sandy ground of the ring. The first opponent to touch the ground with any body part above the knee or to lose hold of their opponent loses the round. Serum competitions are traditionally held twice a year, during the Dano festival, the 5th day of the 5th lunar month, and Chuseok, the 15th day of the 8th lunar month. Competitions are also held throughout the year as a part of festivals and other events. Notable public holidays in South Korea. Independence Movement Day, March 1st. Samulyeol, Independence Movement Day, commemorates Korea's declaration of independence from Japanese occupation on March 1, 1919. The name is derived from Korean Sam, 3, Il, 1, and Jeol, Day, the date of the uprising in 1919. Korea was annexed to the Empire of Japan on August 29, 1910 following the imposed Japan-Korea Treaty. On March 1, 1919, Korean presented their resistance towards Japan and Japanese occupation with a declaration of independence. Following the conclusion of World War II, Korea was liberated from Japan and its independence restored. The newly established Korean government set aside March 1st as a national holiday to commemorate the sacrifices borne in the long struggle for Korean independence. Memorial Day, June 6. Hyungunjeol is the national holiday in Korea commemorating those who fought and died for the nation. In August 1948, only a few years after Korea achieved its independence from Japan, the Korean War, in Korea also known as the 6.25 War, broke out between North and South Korea. During this war, approximately 400,000 soldiers and some 1 million citizens were killed or injured. In 1953, North and South Korea agreed to a ceasefire, and 3 years later the Korean government established Hyungunjeol to commemorate the soldiers who fought in the Korean War. Subsequent to its establishment, Hyungunjeol was reinterpreted as a day of remembrance for those who died defending Korea in all conflicts, not only during the Korean War. National Liberation Day, August 15. Gwangbokyeol is the day for celebrating liberation of the country from Japan in 1945 as well as celebrating the establishment of Korean government in 1948. Gwangbok means returned light representing gaining national sovereignty from Japan. It was first declared to be national holiday in 1949 October 1st. On this date every year, the President of Korea visits Independence Hall, and invites diplomatic envoys from many countries and all social standings in countries to Cheongwada, the Blue House, the Korean presidential residence. Hangul Day, October 9th. Hangul Day, also spelled as Hangul Day, is a day that celebrates the creation of the Hunminjeongeum, Hangul, Korean alphabet, which was inscribed to the UNESCO Memory of the World Register in 1997. Hangul was created by Sejong the Great in 1443 and proclaimed in 1446. Before the creation of Hangul, people in Korea, known as Joseon at the time, primarily wrote using classical Chinese alongside native phonetic writing systems that predate Hangul by hundreds of years, including IDU, Hyangcheol, Gugyal, and Gakpile. However, due to the fundamental differences between the Korean and Chinese languages, and the large number of characters needed to be learned, there was much difficulty in learning how to write using Chinese characters for the lower classes, who often didn't have the privilege of education. To assuage this problem, King Sejong created the unique alphabet known as Hangul to promote literacy among the common people. Hangul Day was founded in 1926 during the Japanese occupation by members of the Korean Language Society, whose goal was to preserve the Korean language during a time of rapid forced Japanization. Today, both South Korea and North Korea celebrate Hangul Day as a national holiday. See also Index of Korea-related articles. Inter-Korean Summit. Korean name. List of people of Korean descent. National treasures of North Korea. National treasures of South Korea. Korean natural farming. Korean cuisine. List of Korean inventions and discoveries. Korean War. Notes. References. Sources. Further reading. Chun, Tukchu, Korea in the Pacific Community. Social Education 52, March 1988, 182, EJ 368177. Cummings, Bruce. The Two Koreas. New York, Foreign Policy Association, 1984. Oberdorfer, Don, 2001. The Two Koreas, A Contemporary History. Basic Books. ISBN 0465051626. OCLC 47831650. Focus on Asian Studies. Special Issue, Korea, A Teacher's Guide. No. 1, Fall 1986. Shin, Giwook, 1999, Robinson, Michael, ed. Colonial Modernity in Korea, Cambridge, M.A., Harvard University, Asia Center, ISBN 0-674-14255-1. Hart, Dennis. From Tradition to Consumption, Construction of a Capitalist Culture in South Korea, Seoul, Jimundange, 2003. Jaeger, Sheila Miyoshi, 2013. Brothers at War, The Unending Conflict in Korea, London, Profile Books, ISBN 978-1-84668-067-0. Joe, W.J., and Cho, H.A., Traditional Korea, A Cultural History, Seoul, Halim, 1997. Jangwon, A.K., Divided Korea, The Politics of Development, Harvard University Press, 1975. Lee Ki-baek, A New History of Korea, Cambridge, Harvard Up, 1984. Lee Sang-sup, The Arts and Literature of Korea, The Social Studies 79, July-August 1988, 153 60, EJ 376894. Pratt, Keith L., 2006. Everlasting Flower, A History of Korea, London, Rikshan, ISBN 9781861892737, OCLC 63137295. Taejin, Y. The Illegality of the Forced Treaties Leading to Japan's Annexation of the Great Han Empire, in the Korean National Commission for UNESCO, Volume 36, No. 4, 1996. The Gloucestershire Regiment in the Battle of the Imjin River, Korean War, UK, Gloucesters. How does Korea compare? OECD Health Data, PDF, Briefing Note, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, 2009. External links Texts on Wikisource. Korea, Collier's New Encyclopedia, 1921. Korea, Encyclopedia Americana, 1920. The Republic of Korea, Korea at DMOZ,